Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you to We'll Bring the Popcorn, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
Today we're going to be reviewing the new film One Battle After Another and the 4-episode miniseries Marvel Zombies.
One Battle After Another is the latest from Paul Thomas Anderson. It picks up telling us a story about the French 75, a revolution group who are trying to make changes by any means necessary. So, we kick off with Leonardo DiCaprio's Bob. He's kind of the bomb guy. He's the explosion guy. And it jumps right into it that we're going into, it looks like they're trying to break out some immigrants who are in a camp. And this is a very heavy political film. It's got a lot of social commentary. We got a lot of stuff to it. And it's almost 3 hours long too. So it packs a lot in that 3 hour running time. But yeah, it deals with what is unfortunately very topical stuff here, like a lot of stuff that we've seen in the last few years today. So it gets pretty heavy with the storytelling and what it's going about. But yeah, we see Bob, we see his love interest, Perfidia, Beverly Hills. So some really interesting names in here. There's a few really out there names and stuff as well. But we start off kind of with their love story and what they're going through. And then, we jump 16 years after a big event happens and we get to see exactly kind of what's the fallout after the French 75 and what's really going on with these people in the revolution. And I got to say, it was an enjoyable movie, but a very heavy movie, especially when you're looking at everything that's happening, going on in the world, that it makes you think and it hits you hard with a lot of stuff. But I'm going to, before I throw it over to you, I've got to say Sean Penn absolutely stole this movie. Like every scene he was in, he was just absolutely electric. This is another potentially third Oscar-winning performance for Sean Penn. Like he was incredible as Colonel Lockjaw.
That's heavy praise. But yeah, like it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film. You know what you're getting out of these. I love his films. He's not afraid to like go there and, talk about topical things going on in the world. And, that's kind of a staple of his films. And man, like he really went after it in this one too. Like you said, you've got this radical group, the French 75, who were, like you said, by any means necessary, wanting to achieve their objectives. And they go to some pretty harsh, like, lengths to kind of get some stuff done where they're, attacking, those immigration camps, and they're robbing banks and doing kind of some other stuff too. Like the time jump here is important because you have an event where Perfidia is on the run here at this point, and she gets captured. We're going into some heavy spoilers here. We kind of have to talk a bit about the plot of the film here to kind of really explain some of the things that are happening. But she gets captured and kind of eventually turns rat on her own organization under, Lockjaw captures her and threatens to like, hey, we're going to ruin your life if you don't like rat out your people. We'll put you up in like witness protection and other things to kind of, help you if you help us. And she kind of breaks out and runs off, and it just kind of kicks off the time jump there where, she and Bob have had a young daughter. So now Bob is in the care of the young daughter while she's on the run. And it's kind of interesting where they're at when they make this time jump. Cause you have, Bob is kind of this paranoid, stoner conspiracy theorist kind of thing where he's like still so dedicated to the cause that he goes so far off grid, he kind of loses touch with it, kind of loses his edge a little bit because he spends so much time isolated and out there. And, a lot of it is heavily focused on their daughter who they name Willa, who she has to take on that name because they, go off grid and, they're on the run most of their life too. And it's a really fun story once you get into the meat and you get to the time jump, especially when you see, Lockjaw is on this mission to find Bob and Willa by any means necessary. And eventually through the story, the way it's told, you find out why he's so gung-ho on going after them. And I got to agree, man. Sean Penn is fantastic on this. He has a very distinct walk when he walks.
He's walking with a stick up his butt.
Almost literally is what it feels like, just based on how he walks. And I know you and I were kind of having some fun with that in the theater, just like, with the way he kind of
carries
himself. Walk. It's a very distinct. It's funny, but you have that balance that Paul Thomas Anderson strikes so great in most of his films, where it can be action heavy. It's got dark tones, but it's also got some comedic elements into it too. Like there's some legitimately funny things that happen in this film, and it's kind of done with some dark intentions, and it's just a really good time when you see a film like this. I got some enjoyment out of it too.
Yeah, it's going back to like Sean Penn. Like he can be, he's kind of our typical military guy, and with commentary on the military that, they're basically saying and doing whatever they want to hide up. So he's staging raids on, I forget the name of the chicken place, but it was Finger Licking Chicken or something like that.
Something silly.
And just saying there's heroin there and just instantly going in and doing a raid when there's no factual information. So, there's plenty of political commentary on that he's doing whatever he wants so he can go after Bob and Willa. But yeah, his performance was so crazy and layered because it was weird, it was quirky, it was dark. You had no idea what was going to happen when he was on screen because he could take it in any direction any time that he showed up. But it was just such a burn performance. And Leonardo DiCaprio is great as Bob. I think Sean Penn does outshine him a bit. Even like Benicio del Toro, he's a lot of fun in this when you get to see him. He gets a lot of comedic elements with him. Like you get where he's always drinking a beer and handing Bob beer no matter what. Even if he's coming to rescue him, the first thing he does is hand him a 6-pack of beer. And you have him dancing when the police get him. And you have like Bob. There's one sequence where Bob is trying to remember the password because they're an underground revolution. So they have to make sure only the people who are communicating and talking with them are their people, and Bob cannot remember what the time is. We see this in the trailer and everything else. And when Benicio and Leo get together and he's on the phone trying to figure this out, I don't know why it made me laugh so much, is that Benicio's like in the bathroom washing his hands. It's like, I don't know what time it is. And Benicio's like, it's 8:15.
It's so funny.
But it's like, it's not a literal time thing that he's looking for, but Benicio's like, oh, it's 8:15. And just goes back about his business.
It's so funny. But he's also like this, he's also like set up this sanctuary city for like his, his people, and he's got them constantly on the move if, stuff goes sideways. And it's a fun commentary on that too. But yeah, I absolutely loved Benicio del Toro in this as Sensei Sergio. It was so funny. He gets a lot of the comedic relief while also playing this cool, collected, constantly keeping things moving, and has a good system in place for that. And he plays a pretty big role in helping Bob as well. But yeah, that whole scene with Bob trying to remember the thing and being on the phone with the revolutionary guy who isn't a day one, and he finally gets to talk to a supervisor who's like one of his direct friends, and the whole admonishing the guy for not helping Leo at that point is so funny. But it kind of harkens me back to like calling to like any company and having to do like the voice menus and all that stuff where you have to talk and you can't, you think you're saying the right things and you're not saying the right things. It was kind of a play on that in my mind. It was very funny and very well done. But man, this movie didn't take any, like, it didn't hold anything back from like taking shots at a lot of different things, a lot of different types of people. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Christmas organization that
Hail Saint Nick.
Yeah, Hail Saint Nick. So it's this it's very much a play on like the KKK and like, the very like heavily racist and racial, profiling type of groups or whatever that think like they're the superior race and all that. It's very much a play on that subject, but told as like their Christmas group, and their whole thing is like Hail Saint Nick.
Merry Christmas, Hail Saint Nick. Merry Christmas, Hail Saint Nick.
It's so absurd and funny, but it's one thing that definitely like cuts through in some of the film. But their mission is still very dark and very racially motivated, and that's like the group that Colonel Lockjaw is trying to enjoy. That's to join. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of a through line throughout the film is like he's taking these steps to make sure he gets in, and there's some very dark consequences for people as a result of him trying to do this. So it's definitely a very strong social commentary in that regard too. Like it's very over the top and very, very heavy at times too.
Yeah, it definitely has some commentary on the KKK, but also just like the secret societies, and especially with conspiracies with the Illuminati and stuff else, is kind of wrapping all those up into this Christmas adventurers group that's just Yeah, wild and crazy, but it's one story that it felt 3 hours, but it didn't feel 3 hours, but it felt 3 hours because it starts you right off the bat, right into it, and it doesn't really let up that much. Like it just hits you with one thing after another, and just keeps going. And hey,
he did the thing.
The one thing I would say I wanted more because I really enjoyed what she was doing, and I was hoping to see a little bit more of Chase Infinity as Willa. I was hoping that they would give her a little bit more than she got. She gets some stuff in there, and it's really important to it, and you get to see her going through some shock and other things that because she's unaware of what was going on with her mom and dad. Like, she didn't know that they were revolutionists and that they were involved in all this dark stuff. She's just a teenager that wants to hang out with her friends and go to a dance and do all this stuff, and she's really good in the bits she did have that I was hoping to see a little bit more out of her just because she was that good.
I did too. She's fantastic when she's in there, but you could tell she's kind of raised by the paranoid dad, and she's been conditioned to things. And you see one of the best scenes, in my opinion, is very early on when you see her and she's at the dance, and one of the French 75 people show up to extract her, and you see the light switch go off as like, oh, these are the things that I thought my dad was just being paranoid, but oh, this is legit. Like, he kind of beats it into her head as she's growing up. Like, hey, if somebody approaches you and says X, Y, or Z, or this thing that you're carrying goes off and they say the right things, you need to trust them absolutely with your life. And then you see that happen in real time where she was just like, oh, that's just dad being silly. And then, oh, somebody actually showed up and said these things to me. I have to kind of like take it seriously. And she just kind of jumps in and it kind of takes off from there. And it was a really well done scene, in my opinion, just to have her come to that realization. Like, her world has basically been flipped upside down because all the things that she thought her dad was paranoid about are actually coming to fruition.
Yeah, so the conspiracies are true.
It was a really cool, really well done scene, in my opinion, and she played that so well. And I have to give her a lot of credit for that. Like, that was a fantastic scene in that film.
Yeah, and even though her role was a little bit smaller, the French 75 person that shows up is Regina Hall's Deandra, and even though her role is more minor in this film, she does a really good job of hitting a little heart and emotion because, Tiana Taylor's Perfidia, we get her heavy in the beginning, but she does kind of go away for most of the film here. So while she was really good in the beginning, it does kind of fall on Deandra to be a little bit of the motherly type of figure to her, even though it's still a more minor role in it. She was really good, and we get some absurdity stuff with that because she's trying to take her to a place which is these nuns, but it's not your typical nunnery that they're growing pot and they're training with machine guns and everything else. Like, it's a really wild and out there film. Like, it touches on so many different things that are very realistic and true to the times we're living in, but also absurdly over the top and crazy, but also touching on the conspiracies and what's real and what's not and secret society. So there is a whole lot wrapped up in this 2 hour and 45 minute or so film. Like, there's a lot that he has to say that he says in this film. But I mentioned somewhat earlier, like, Leo does almost feel not as much as the lead in this. I mean, he's got plenty to do in there, but I do feel like Willa and Lockjaw and their story and all that kind of overshadows him a little bit. Like, there's plenty for Leo to do, but like the standout performance was Lockjaw and almost like Willa and the rest behind that. But Leo's great. It just kind of felt like it went a lot more with like Lockjaw feeling almost like the main character of this film.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about a lot of the things and pointing heavy towards a lot of what a lot of people feel are very negative type characters, like you want to kind of focus on that character. And Lockjaw does have a big role in this film, but it's I would still consider Leo the lead in this, as the dad trying to save his daughter from this guy that they were terrified of coming back after them, who's finally shown back up to come after them, and like gets Willow and kind of has his own agenda for her, and he's trying to save her before something nefarious happens, because there's a different plot in the film that I don't want to talk about here because it kind of spoils some of the events and some of the motivations for like Lockjaw in this movie that will make sense when you see it, but it's very much Bob on a desperate chase to not only not get caught, but also to save his daughter. So it's kind of this rescue mission that he goes on for this thing, and it just goes to some absurd lengths. One of my favorite scenes in this entire movie, and I hope you know where I'm going with this, is when he's trying to escape the building from Sergio, and he hands him off to his buddies, who are significantly younger, because they're significantly younger. Bob's like this older guy now, and he's trying to go run across these rooftops with these kids who are just running and jumping and parkouring, and Bob's like out of shape, out of practice, jumping back into where he's not, the man he was 16 years prior, where he could do all. I feel
like he was running with the Ninja Turtles on the rooftops.
Yeah, it was very cartoonish and over the top with that. I was just cracking up, because I was like, this would also be me trying to run behind some of these young pups who are just parkouring over every little,
and how that sequence
every
ended.
little jump, and then how that sequence ended was so funny. It's so hysterical. Like it was really well done, and I love that scene. It's one of the main scenes that really stood out for me, and just had me laughing about it after I watched it.
And had me giggling too. The phone call afterwards when they're calling Sensei and telling him about stuff. It's like, yeah, this happened. Like, so just casual, nonchalant that this happened. Like, okay,
yep, we'll deal with it.
Just meet me here.
He's so cool, calm, and collected. That's what I love about.
Nothing bothers him in this film.
Sergio, he's perfectly zen, like a good sensei should be, and it's so funny and so well done. Like, I have a feeling like you may love Lockjaw. I love Benicio del Toro.
Benicio was great.
He's so good in what limited time he is on screen. He's just nothing phases the guy. He's just smooth and cool and just operates as he operates in a very real and very stressful situation. Not fazed by it at all. He's just like, it's gonna be all right, man. I got this. And you just have that cool confidence that he keeps through this whole thing with some comedic elements there on top of it. I absolutely loved it. He's phenomenal too. I could see him getting nominated for some stuff as like a potential supporting actor in a film in this, and he's just amazing in this too. I loved his role.
I don't know why this gag humored me as much as it did as well, but there is a sequence with Sensei and Bob that, Bob has come to him for help, and he's trying to contact the French 75 again so he could get the point where Will is going to be. So he's trying to find the rendezvous point and stuff too. And he has, he's told right away, do not use modern cell phones. You need to use older analog cell phone or phones and stuff. And so he's just trying to find a place to charge his phone. And it just, one thing after another, that he tries to sit down and charge it. What are you doing? We got to go. And they go to the next place and he tries to charge it. What are you doing? We got to go. And so just funny. Over and over and over again that he's just trying to plug in to the wall to charge this phone. And it's just, they just kept doing it. And I'm just like, I'm chuckling at it. And I'm like,
it's so funny.
It's a ridiculous little bit, but it just humored me because of Leo. Like, I didn't want to downplay Leo's performance or role in this. Like, I felt he was really good, but it did feel like he was almost supporting Benicio and supporting Lockjaw and supporting Willa. Like, he was being more of a supporting guy, a glue that's been helping the revolution, that's helping Willa, and that's trying to do all this stuff and everything. But that sequence just made me chuckle because it's just so absurd and ridiculous.
It hits me right in the humor pocket I like to find myself sometimes. It's just context humor, like humor just based on the context. It's so smartly written because he's so paranoid about getting his phone charged to get some kind of signal so he can make this call, and he's just running and moving and moving and moving and moving and moving, and then they finally get to somewhere where they could stop for a minute, and just so smooth. Sensei's like, here behind the couch, and he's like, I got power, I got a bar, and you just hear Sensei in the back. That's great, Bob. Just like he's just still like trying to keep everything moving, and he's dealing with this overly paranoid Bob who's just desperate to get a signal to contact somebody, and he's so, you could tell he's so used to dealing with people that panic that it doesn't faze him. And it doesn't stress him out, and it's so funny. But that's just what makes that character so good. Like I said, it's that calm confidence this entire time where everyone around him is panicking, and he's just level the entire time. It's so good. So well done.
Yeah, just absolutely nothing phases him through it all, no matter what he's going through. Like I said, there's a sequence where, he's been pulled over, and you get him, and then we've seen a little of the stills and everything else of it, but he just does this little dance type of thing that he does, and he's just even unbothered at that point, that he knows he's been helping immigrants be able to stay safe and get out, and that he's been helping Bob, and he's doing all this other stuff, but he's still just so unbothered, even when like the police come for him.
Yeah, it's so good. He's fantastic in this.
The only time you actually see him bothered is when Bob wouldn't jump out of the car. And again, that's a sequence we saw in the trailer and stuff. Yeah. He's just, that's only one time that you saw him get a little annoyed. It's like, Bob, four, go, jump, go.
Just jerks the wheel really quick and throws him off.
Like, what'd you throw out of the car? Trash. You sure about that?
Yep. He's so good. He's so freaking good. But yeah, like you just go and like we talk about some of the comedic elements, and it's important because you're dealing with such heavy subjects like this, and people's lives are being affected, and you've got this heavy subject of Lockjaw trying to get Willa by any means, and he's just willing to cut down anyone that gets in his way of doing this. Because he's acting out of desperation, because he's trying to join this group and he's trying to tie up some loose ends, and it's very dark, and you get Sean Penn, who, like, on the other side, as much as I love the comedic kind of nonchalantness of Sergei, he's this desperate, dark, like, willing to achieve his objective by any means necessary character that he does such a phenomenal job at. And that's where you get this kind of duality that I really like in Paul Thomas Anderson films, where you can do really good at both. Like if this were, and I think the marriage of the two is what makes his movies so powerful and impactful, is you can have that balance where it can be silly and absurd at times, and you go straight to the other side where it's just absolutely dark and brutal and gruesome, and you can find a way to marry the two in a way that works. And in a lot of cases, not a lot of people can do that, where you can have that balance in a film that works so well. And I think he found a really good pocket to keep this movie in between the dark and the light, and the heavy and the humorous, just to kind of balance each other out. And I think he does such a good job of walking that line in this film.
Yeah, because you've got a scene between Lockjaw and Willa that happens towards the end of the film that is equally humorous, but also very heavy, because it's dealing with subject matter, and you've got more being revealed to Willa, and you have him dealing with multiple things, because he's got a line that he throws back at her that's just really funny, but then you get just the ticks and the real just gritty darkness of him, that when he comes to a realization of something, you see that kind of just switch flipping him again, like, all right, I got to do what I have to do here and take care of some things. And you get a really dark sequence towards the end there, because he's trying to figure out what to do with his situation, even though he's already had plenty of people killed, plenty of people arrested, set so many things in action on his own. He's got to this point where he's been able to do just about anything, but he's not able to do the one thing that he knows that needs to be done here at the end. And that's why, like, I so love that character, even though it's a very dark and character you hate, is that he's kind of got the most levels to everything, because you have everything with the secret society, but you also have his personal likes and beliefs on things, and you get the humor, but you get the dark and gritty, and you get the full spectrum of commentary on the government and the military all through him, because he's kind of encapsulating everything that is like wrong or bad or anything that could be going on, because he's acting alone and doing whatever he wants, and he's killing people, like, because you get some of the French 75, which is a little spoiler, you get killed by him without a second thought. Like, they either were giving up or not even knew something was around, and they just get offed. But other times he arrests other people, and you get interrogations and you get other things like that. Like, you get through Lockjaw just the full spectrum of just everything that's wrong about everything. Like, he is a very central point of everything that is bad and wrong in this film.
He's a really well fleshed out character. Like, you get to see all of the layers of this guy who, like you said, you kind of summed it up perfectly. He has his own personal feelings about, certain types of people and certain types of things, but he still so wants to join this society of people that, believe they are a superior race, but there's some hurdles to get into it that he has to get over, and his just desperation to fit in there. And it's a wild ride that it takes you on, man, because like it ends in a way that is kind kind of predictable, but the way they get there is just an insane journey that you go on through this, where it gets very intense and very heavy, and you deal with some very, I would call it, triggering subject matter when it comes to like the way people go about achieving their objectives in this film, because it's some dark stuff, man. Like they do
it gets really dark.
They do some very, very dark things in this that, you know, in some ways I feel like everybody has become kind of desensitized to, but it's still done in a very impactful way in this film that you're just like, man, you just want Willow to be okay. You want Bob to make it through. You want them to get reunited at some point. And like you said, you get a little bit of that predictable end point at the end of the film, but some of the ways they got there, man, was just wild and crazy. It was just It was just a ton of fun. I had a lot of enjoyment. Like you said, this was like a 2 hour and 40-minute movie that didn't really feel like a 2 hour and 40-minute movie at sometimes, but at sometimes you're just like, man, this is a long movie. Like, what are we like can we get there? Because I think it's pointed to get to a couple of the minor criticisms that I have of it, and some of it is pacing. And I feel like at some points it took a little too long and stayed a little longer in some of the scenes than it maybe needed to. That I think you could have found a sweet spot if you had cut maybe 10 minutes off of this movie. I think it would have helped it a lot. But still, it's a minor nitpick for me because the film is so well done that I think it could have trimmed a little bit more fat off of it, and it would have been potentially a perfect movie. But the fact that it lingers a little bit in some areas causes it to lose a little bit for me, but not enough to where it completely cut my enjoyment by any means, because I really enjoyed this film. But I really think it could have cleaned a little bit up.
Yeah, just the same as you had a few small nitpicky things with that could have been slightly shorter, just cleaned up and tightened up a few sequences that maybe they're just talking a little bit too long that didn't really have that big a significance. And I know online it's a sequence that a lot of people love with the road, and the road almost becoming a character in that. But there's some parts of that you could have trimmed down a little bit too, to kind of tighten it up with those sequences. But yeah, it's hard to say. Like it was a lot of fun for a very dark movie that's very society, government, political, dark, heavy as well. But that's the kind of the perfect thing that Paul Thomas Anderson's able to do, is that balance between the humor and the darkness and the death and grittiness, and still leaving some shed of hope within all of everything going wrong and stuff. And it's really well balanced for the most part. But yeah, the most things that I have are just really just kind of nitpicky, small things that didn't take away from my enjoyment of the film at all. Like that, it's a very smartly done film that's going to make you think a lot. Like it's, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, there's a lot of stuff that you can be looking at from every different angle with this, and some people may take it a little bit differently than others do, depending on your viewpoints, because it is a heavily political society commentary type of film.
Yeah, and it's going to garner some very strong opinions, and it kind of already has. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those films that it's not afraid to go there. It's not afraid to speak its mind. It's not afraid to, take risks and do some crazy things. Is it a perfect movie? No, but it is very well done, very well written, very well acted and performed. Like they definitely got across the message that they wanted to, I think, in this one. And it's just so stylized and so well shot and so well done that it's definitely going to be in consideration when it comes time for award season. Absolutely guarantee that, especially with some of these performances. Like I said, I hope Benicio del Toro gets some love, because he was my favorite character in this film. Just he gets so much in the limited amount that you see him on this film that just left a lasting impact with me. But yeah, Sean Penn is definitely going to be nominated for some performances here, because he just plays that dark, over-the-top, insane type character here that has so many layers and is so well written in this movie for the type of character that he is. And he just absorbs himself in this role in a way that, it's it's very striking in this film that he should get some love for this, because he loses himself in this role, and it's just so well done.
So One Battle After Another is another fantastic film from Paul Thomas Anderson. It's a very heavy film, but there's plenty of humor and things to enjoy from that side. But it deals with so many different sides of secret societies and politics and society itself, and just so many different layers. Some great performances. Sean Penn definitely sticks out as probably one of the front runners for award season from this film, along with Benicio del Toro, Leonardo DiCaprio. I think a lot of the actors and actresses in this film are going to get nominations. It was a dark, gritty film that was also humorous, entertaining. I'm going to give it a 9. I think it was a very solid film. It's one of the best films of the year, but it's not going to be for everybody because it can be very polarizing depending on your viewpoints and how you look at the world and how you think about things. And I think that's part of the point of it, is to try to get you to think.
Yeah, I agree. I was landing around a 9 as well. I wanted to give it a 9.5, but with some of the pacing issues and some of the things, like I said, that kind of stuck around a little bit to keep it from getting that upper echelon of films. I think it could have trimmed the fat just a little bit, but fantastic performances all around, like you said. Sean Penn, phenomenal as Colonel Lockjaw. Benicio del Toro was my personal favorite as Sensei Sergio. Just a complete gem of a film that I'm definitely planning on going back and revisiting multiple times. It is one that is not afraid to speak its mind. It's not afraid to have opinions on certain things. It's not afraid to present people in a light. It's going to be a very polarizing, opinionated film for a lot of people, but I think in what it's trying to do with its ability to capture the humor along with a very dark subject matter, it does such a perfect job of landing the balance in that, and it's just a staple of a Paul Thomas Anderson film. If you're a fan of his previous films, you're going to love this one too. It is right up there with some of the other films that he's done that have been just so amazing over the years. He's a director who, every time I hear he's attached to direct a project, I'm going to go see his film as soon as I can. He's one of my personal favorite directors. I love the style of films that he makes. I love that he's not afraid to speak his mind on any potential subject matter that he wants to cover in his films, and I just love it. I love the art form. I love the way this film is shot. The cinematography in it's amazing. The sound is amazing as well. It does not let up from start to finish. It is one that is very worth your time to go and watch.
Yeah, and even though we didn't even talk about sound and music, but it gets like, even the music gets so very frantic at times where it's like almost to the edge of like annoying you, because it gets some, like, there's some
very much so, yeah,
sequences that are really like pinging hard, and it's getting kind of just real frantic all over the place music, but it's, matching what's going on, but it's like it's kind of setting you into that mood, like, okay, what is going on, like, what is this music, what am I watching, like, yeah, he does his art just so amazingly. Like, there's really hasn't been something that he hasn't put out that hasn't been in just such an incredibly solid film that everyone should go see, not only because unfortunately it does have a lot of things to say about the world in the last several years and everything else, but it's just a really smartly well done film that should be seen by everybody.
So good. We cannot recommend it enough. Go check out this film. One Battle After Another is in theaters now. Come to our Discord. Talk to us about this movie. Leave a comment on the YouTube video if you're watching us there. Come talk to us. Let us know what you think about this one. This is one I'm excited to talk to people about, because I know it's going to have some very divisive opinions depending on what part of the political aisle you want to lean on. It's not afraid to speak its opinion there, and you can have types of feelings about that if you want to, but it's one that's definitely not afraid to speak its mind, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of that, and it's fun to have those conversations. It makes you think. Like, it does a good job of kind of like, hey, presenting these things. It is a sensationalized movie. Nobody is saying that there's people that exist that are exactly like this, but it definitely doesn't shy away from the fact that people like that do exist in the world, and it's a very well done artistic presentation of someone's opinion of this, and it's just very well done. It's a good movie. It's worth your time.
Yeah, and as we've said, if you want more of these type of films to be made, if you're complaining about it's all being comic books or other stuff like that, if you want these more unique original films to get made and picked up, especially something like this, like bravo to the studios for not shying away from putting out a film like this, you got to go out and see it. You got to support it.
It's definitely worth it.
We are now partnered with Dubby Energy. Dubby is a clean energy drink to give you focus with no crash or jitters like other energy drinks.
Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It also features 0 calories, no sugar, no fillers, and no artificial dyes.
From Dragonade and S'mores to Push and Punch and Galaxy Grenade, Dubby has a wide range of flavors for you to choose from.
Use code WBTP to save 10% off your Dubby Energy orders and look for a direct link in the audio and video descriptions. So now I want to take us into our TV review of the week. We have Marvel Zombies, the new miniseries on Disney+. This stems from a very famous What If episode where they talk about what if your favorite heroes were zombie characters, and this is kind of the kickoff point for that, where you have the zombie apocalypse, and that's where this is set. Now, some of your favorite Marvel heroes at this point have become victims to the zombie apocalypse and are zombies, but you have, kicking off this first episode, is your heroes in this case are the Young Avengers. So you get Kate Bishop, you get Kamala Khan, you get Riri Williams, and they're kind of this trio who's working to kind of survive in the zombie apocalypse, but it really kicks off starting with those three. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the other sidekick, Friday, who happens to be in a Tony Stark suit with a teddy bear head, which is kind of some fun. I
had to laugh at that as soon as I saw Iron Man
so
flying through the air with the stuffed teddy bear head on him.
It's a very ridiculous visual, but it's so fun. What I think they do a really good job of in this show is you can tell where they found their footing a little bit in the animation style of What If. I know we had talked a little bit about, you go back in our archives and check out what we thought about What If, but you could tell for a little bit they were kind of struggling to find their footing in animation style. It is so smooth in this show, in this miniseries. The animation is stunning in this, and you can really tell that they found their stride, and it really gets to show off in this. But you get those three characters who, are kind of your kickoff point for this miniseries. Is they find this little tiny transmitter device, and they're on their way to find somewhere to get the message out that can help save the planet. And that's kind of the impetus here. And you get a very quick introduction in episode 1 to a character that you and I both have been clamoring for, and I think most of Marvel fans at this point have been clamoring for. We get an appearance of Blade, but it's not the Blade that we're used to. We get basically Blade Knight, which is Blade as the Moon Knight character. You have Khonshu, who is, Pickett, his chosen Blade as his new avatar now. So you get Blade Knight, and Blade Knight was awesome in this series. I love him so much.
I have to say that Blade Knight stole this series for me. Like, he was so fantastic. His action sequences were great. And we're going to get into some spoilery stuff with this. There's one sequence where he's fighting a zombie ghost, and it was just so fantastic to see the movement action. This also angered me because it's like, Marvel, you see how fun and great doing Blade can be in the MCU. Get that movie done. Get us live action Blade. Get Blade in more things, because Blade Knight was really fantastic. He stole the show.
Well, they even modeled him after Mahershala Ali. Like, he's literally the animated.
Even though it wasn't voiced by him.
It wasn't. But to their credit, I love that they've gotten so many of the voice actors of the actors who play them in the show. So you get Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. You get Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff in this, who everybody's talked about, is she ever coming back as, the Scarlet Witch, but she actually does this. You get Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. You get so many of these. There's a personal favorite of mine, Florence Pugh as Yelena in this as well. Like, there's so many of the main actors who lend their voices to this that there's only a couple that aren't. And you can very clearly tell when it's not them that is, but man, it was so cool to get. I love when they can get these guys to come back and do it, because it makes it feel so much more connected, even though it's this over-the-top absurd zombie story where, it is not afraid to go very dark, very violent. It is a very heavy TVMA for the brutality in this. And it's some of the things you can get away with in doing an animated series like this, but I love that they weren't afraid to go there.
Yeah, they killed characters off fast and quickly, even ones that were not already zombies. We start with, because this is 5 years after that What If episode that we're kicking off, so we've got like Hawkeye and a few others that have already been turned, and Captain America, which that was just a wild sequence of Red Guardian and Captain America going against each other, because Captain zombie Captain America is only the top half.
Yeah.
But you get a wild sequence of him rolling around on Red Guardian's shield and everything there, and that battle and fight was just ridiculous. Like, David Harbour is so good as Red Guardian, just allowing him to cheese it up and ham it up. Even in animation form, you're allowing him to cheese it up and ham it up, but you also get some more touching moments in this because you deal with a lot of, he and Yelena, the widows, and all of that have taken over a SHIELD base in Ohio, and that's kind of where our main cast is heading to. But as you mentioned, we also have another kind of a side cast with Shang-Chi, and we end up getting like Spider-Man and Paul Rudd as a floating head Doctor Strange Ant-Man type of mashup in there. It's interesting to note that this became a miniseries because they wanted to use Spider-Man in it. They didn't have the rights. Of course, that's all still tied up with Sony and everything. They didn't have the rights to do film because that would count against what they have for Tom Holland and using him in the live action and stuff. But because they just did Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, they had the rights to do Spider-Man. So you also get the voice actor for Spider-Man in that series come back, but playing it very differently from that series. But it became a miniseries because of that, which made it really interesting. It does feel like a movie that's broken up into 4 episodes, and we now know why that was, because that's how they got around some of the stipulations of these contracts of, all right, we want to use Spider-Man. Well, we can't make it a movie. Let's make it a miniseries. And I still think it works as a miniseries, but it would have been really interesting to see how this would be mashed up as a single long film. But I think they did a solid job with it overall. Like, I liked and I disliked how they handled Shang-Chi in a way, because it's kind of a sore point, because we got the first Shang-Chi movie, really love Simu Liu in that. And as the character, we know he's coming back as Doomsday, but we haven't had much of anything, nothing at all since then. And so the way they bring Shang-Chi into this is before he's still Sean. He's not Shang-Chi. He's still working as the valet with Katie and everything. And so we kind of start off a little, so you're going to take Shang-Chi all the way back to the beginning, and we haven't had something in so many years. But I did think it was really neat how they handled stuff with that, because again, spoilers, we get a sequence where they're, it's the beginning of the zombie apocalypse here, and you've got Pym Labs blowing up, so you've got skyscraper zombies, and you have them all around there, and Shang-Chi gets bitten. But we actually get his dad showing up to help. You think it's a military, but it's his dad and, the group showing up, and his dad still has the 10 rings. His dad ends up giving up the 10 rings to Shang-Chi to save him. And so there's always one ring that he's got a zombie arm, and that ring, it's immortality powers and everything with it is keeping that from taking over the rest of his body. And I thought that was a really smart way of mixing in lore of different things, especially lore with the 10 rings, with the zombie apocalypse there. So even though I was a little irked that we jumped all the way back with Shang-Chi after not seeing him so long, I thought that was a really smart way to incorporate the 10 rings with the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, it was definitely, it felt like a jump back to take 2 steps forward kind of thing with that. And I cannot wait to see him back on the screen again and see how they use him, because he does definitely feel like an underserved character based on how they hyped having him in the MCU when, Shang-Chi originally launched. And I think that is probably the best case of the worst world timing for a character you could have had, because he did come out, unfortunately, like the movie came out in the middle of COVID, in the middle of everything that kind of could have kept that from being a bigger deal than it probably would have been under normal circumstances. But I think he may just be a character of just some terrible timing, and then also in a weird time for, Marvel as a studio, where they were going through a definite creative lull that some people may feel that they haven't worked their way out of back again yet. And then that's another argument for another time. But I love to see him. Another character that I love to see was Randall Park as Jimmy Woo.
I love that
Jimmy
they included
Woo
him.
Was so good in this show, and I was absolutely spoiled. It's not that spoiled. He dies eventually, but because so few characters actually make it out of this, that just his death was brutal in just the worst of ways too. But he was so fun for the time we got to have him in. But you see them going on this journey where it takes, Kamala Khan does a lot of the heavy lifting, and she's kind of like the central focus character in this show. And she's so good. Like, I've enjoyed her as Miss Marvel. She was the highlight of the Marvels for me, honestly. And you see her as a character really shine here, that you kind of hope that they have somewhat cool plans for her going forward with like Young Avengers and her being a central focus point for that too. But she was really the central character here, and you go along this journey here with them, and you find out who is behind who's controlling the zombies and who's, on their own mission here. And it's Wanda Maximoff. It's the Scarlet Witch, who's like the evil dead queen, who is not only a zombie herself, but she's trying to obtain the power to reform the world. And she's, on this mission, and she's doing whatever she can to stop. And they play such good foils for each other in this series that takes them along this 4-episode run, where that last episode, man, it really hit hard and hit heavy, because you get this absolutely insane fight between the major zombie horde and the characters that are remaining. And it was just such an incredible battle that it ends in some of the most brutal way you can think of a series to end. But I'll save it for when we get to the end for the last 5 minutes, because there's some interesting things that could potentially be coming out of it if they wanted to go that route. But because it kind of leaves on a little bit of a cliffhanger here. But man, it was a really fun journey that they take you on for these 4 episodes. Like, I was going in expecting it to be just kind of but I actually really enjoyed it. I love the story that they told. And it's a very easy watch, because you can watch it in 2 hours. Like, you can go and watch it fairly quickly, almost like the length of a movie.
Yeah, I always say Marvel kind of missed an opportunity to have John Krasinski voice Jimmy Woo in here and switch it, have him looking like Randall Park, but because that joke is never going to get old. Like, it's just a fantastic joke and stuff. But yeah, it was a really fun series overall. Like, the main heart of the story that we haven't fully touched on is that we do get a zombie Thanos who ends up collecting all of the Infinity Stones and stuff, but we also get, and it's a great touch, because I really want to mention about this. It's a great touch by Zeb Wells, the creator and showrunner of this, is that they have Black Panther in it. It's T'Challa, but he doesn't speak, and they said that was out of respect of Chadwick. Like, they didn't want to recast and have another voice, and he plays an important role in it because he's squaring off with Spider-Man and all that, with Thanos, of trying to stop this zombie Thanos from getting everything. And he's very crucial to the story, because he sacrifices himself to, push zombie Thanos down into the heart and the core of Wakanda to stop it. And that kind of sets off this explosion of just cosmic energy that we have another character, and I don't fully want to spoil what that character was. We go another character that kind of steps in and becomes the crux of this film afterwards. Amazing. And visually it was incredible to see, and I want to see that in live action almost. Like, that would be incredible to see in live action. But that was just a moment that I really loved, that we got T'Challa, we got Black Panther, we got Chadwick in there without having to speak, and have him in there, that you could feel that was a tribute and an honor to Chadwick in there. And that's just bravo to them for deciding to do it that way, because it could have easily done another Black Panther or recast and had a different voice, because there are several people who are not voiced by their original actors and stuff in there. But I love that respect to have T'Challa in there and have him play a pretty crucial part, but keep him silent, so it's a tribute to Chadwick.
It was a great touch, and you get to the end where you get to this last episode, and you see that Wanda's mission is to collect these Infinity Stones to give her the power to reshape the world as, she wants it. And she's trying so heavily to recruit Kamala as like her
manipulate
right hand.
her.
Very, very manipulative, yes. And that plays a heavy hand, especially going into the end here, where you get to the point where, she achieves her objectives, and you have to, we can't not spoil it here, right? So you get to where she gets the power, and then she's basically gives her an ultimatum, like, hey, if you want to make it through, you got to join me, you got to help, like, we could save everyone if you work with me. And you just have this really powerful sequence. But yeah, man, The ending, I don't know if you want to go into it now, or if there's anything else you want to touch on first, or
I think we can jump on it. We're trying to talk about most. It's only it's 2 hours, 30-minute episodes, so it's hard to not just talk
through the
about
entire plot,
absolutely every plot, because we want, if you're really interested, to be able to go check it out and not have every single thing spoiled. Like it's a really hard balance when we're reviewing this stuff. A lot of times after it's come out, quite a bit after it's come out. This is just a few days after it's come out, but we want to make sure people have plenty of time and have some secrets and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think we can go ahead and kind of talk about the ending. So we will be giving some heavy spoilers here about the ending, because I'm a little mixed on how they ended it,
Sure,
and I'm curious to see what you thought about that ending.
Sure. So you get to the end here, you get Wanda achieving her goals, and she gives this ultimatum to, Kamala that, like, hey, if you join me, surrender yourself to me, we can save everyone. We can save your friends. We can fix the world. We can reset everything. And just in her her last desperate hour of, like, she makes a very powerful statement like, this can't all have been for nothing. And she's basically the last one standing. It's like her against everyone else here. And she just kind of succumbs and takes her hand. And then you just get this weird bright flash where she's back home in New Jersey. You have her mom yelling upstairs in a very typical Miss Marvel fashion, like, hey, you got friends at the door. You walk in and you open up and you see Riri and Kate, or at least you think it's Riri and Kate, and you have them just going on a fun little day in New Jersey where they go and, like, according to them, nothing's really happened. Like, everything's normal, life's normal, and nothing. You didn't just go through the zombie apocalypse, but you get, in very typical dark cliffhanger fashion, you see these little shimmers of these people you're looking at may not necessarily be what you're looking at, and you can kind of tell that's Wanda playing with the reality stone and kind of warping Kamala's reality here to show that she thinks her friends are alive, and then you get these little shimmers where she can see that there's these people walking are actually zombies, or are they zombies? And you get what's kind of a little bit of a cliffhanger with Riri, who you thought may have succumbed in the fight to the zombies, as, like, trying to get through to Kamala, like, hey, what you're seeing is not real. Like, we can still do this. Like, let's go. And you leave this very grim, like, Kamala trying to stay in the reality that her friends are alive, while also seeing that maybe the friend that she thought was alive is still actually alive, and there's still hope. And what does that leave for a potential second season? And that seems to be where we kind of leave off here, is the potential second season of Marvel Zombies. Is it going to be a full story arc where they get to save the day? I don't know. Like, we don't know what's happening here, but I can see where a lot of people have a very, very mixed bag on this based on how it ends, because it feels a little absurd at the end, but it also kind of makes sense given how they've presented Wanda as a character here, who's been more than willing to create this alternate reality to kind of help keep people in check while she's dealing with certain things, because we saw it in WandaVision, right? So it's kind of
we got WandaVisioned again,
right? Yeah, it feels like we got that as the ending here, and it's definitely a polarizing thing for people who have already seen it and are already starting to commentate on it.
Yeah, that's the thing I was a little mixed on, because, like, I know this exists outside because it's an alternate reality where everybody is being turned into zombie, the world's in chaos and stuff is an alternate thing. But it was the same as, like, Shang-Chi, that we went back to his beginning and kind of started over to give kind of a new direction for him going forward in this verse. But we did kind of go back to kind of WandaVision, that she is basically anybody who has survived that's in her bubble is seeing like the world is fine, but that's not exactly how it is. So it did feel a little like, all right, we're kind of retreading on WandaVision a little bit there. And it's like, I get it, and it's all right, but it's also because this was always kind of put out there that this is a one-off, that this is something that they're doing once and that's it. But it definitely sounds and looks like, I mean, that ending set up for us to do a season 2, but it was never really, to the audience, to us, set up that we would have more than one season of this. Like, this was really pitched and told to everyone, like, this is just one and we're done. But that ending definitely wasn't a one and a done ending.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks to, and I know we really didn't get to cover any news this week, but there's some other rumblings coming out of Marvel that lot of their animated shows aren't just going to be like a one season type deal, because there's talks of, obviously, we know there's multiple seasons of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. There's going to be multiple seasons of X-Men 97. And that kind of leaves the door open for this to be kind of a continuation too. But where do they go from there? Is it like a whole redemption arc where you're doing a zombie series, but it winds up with the world being fine? Like, is obviously not completely canon, as you have like so many of these characters who, either haven't existed in Marvel yet, or they have no other use for in any type of property. Because if you go back to episode 1, there's a really cool fight between two very, very OP, high-powered, and I don't want to spoil who they are just for people that want to watch it, two very high OP characters, one of which we know Marvel has no plans of ever using again, and one that they very clearly probably will for other things, like they're going to be appearing in other Marvel properties. So it's just this weird balance that they strike here, but is this something like, what's the point of a season 2 if they're going to do it? Because it does leave it ambiguous on a cliffhanger. Like, you could go to a potential second season, but what was the point if you're going back to revisit it? And I hate that they leave it ambiguous only because you don't know if they're confirmed to go back to it or not. Because like you said, this has always been pitched as a one-off. We don't know. But then you get the whole cop-out that I don't like, where it's just like, oh, if it performs well, we'll definitely go back and do it again. And I don't like that. I don't like leaving something ambiguous if you don't have plans to go back and do it again, or if it's contingent on being successful. And that's where I think that's a whole other topic that we can go into for so many other. It's not just this instance. There's so many cases of TV shows leaving on a cliffhanger that never gets resolved, or leaving at a stopping point where it's not satisfactory because you think they're going back to season 2 and it gets canceled or goes to another season or what have you. Like, there's a whole list and a whole episode we could do on just that subject alone. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of leaving it ambiguous if you don't have plans to go back and revisit it, because it just feels incomplete.
Yeah, because you don't know, like you said, where do we go from here? We know it's going to be something about Kamala trying to break out and we see who's left, but we lost just about everybody that we could think of that we had in this and stuff. So you're going to have to introduce some new. So, like, depending on how long it's like this took 4 or 5 years, it takes a long time to do some animation stuff, because they said they included Blade in this because it was when Marshala was announced that he was going to be Blade. So like, all right, we expect the Blade film's going to be out by the time this comes out. So we have a nice tie into the Blade universe and stuff. Of course, that never happened. We have Doomsday. We have Secret Wars coming up. We could potentially, if we get a second season, and more than likely is going to be well after Doomsday. So do we get Doctor Doom? Do we get any of the X-Men? Do we get any of that kind of mashing Fantastic up into Four, this world? Yeah. I would love to see Ghost Rider show up in the zombie apocalypse.
Perfect
you
character
get
for that.
Like, where was he? Like, come on. That's a character that's perfect for a zombie apocalypse to, go on just an absolute rampage and stuff with it. But yeah, it was, I wasn't expecting it to be open-ended, so that left me okay, like, yeah, you're setting up to something, but it was, at least to us, was never planned to be multi-season. And yeah, you give the lines like, well, if enough people watch it, we can do more. And I get maybe Marvel's being a little more hesitant on stuff and they're not greenlighting everything. But if you put something out that it's said to the team that you're doing a one-off, end it like a one-off a little bit more solidly, so that you can, if you decide to go do a second one, you can still find something to pick up from. But if you don't, then it ended well. This one did leave me in the WandaVision, like, hey, this isn't resolved. This isn't kind of finalized. We still have some problems and some issues and some things that have to be worked out. And yeah, it was one of those that was just like, it wasn't bad, but it was also, when I go in thinking that this is a limited time event, that you're going to get the full conclusion of the story that they're trying to tell. And clearly there's at least one more season worth of story to be able to tell with this, which I'm not mad about potentially having more of this, but it's more of that everyone went in thinking that this is it.
Yeah, it's all about subverting expectations at that point, because like you said, I'm not anti a second season of this. I'd love to see the story continue, but when you have that expectation going in, that it's going to be a one-off, and And, we understand not everybody going into this is going to have that knowledge necessarily, but it does skew our opinion on it because we do know, because we, nerd out about these things like we do. Like, we know going in that it was supposed to be a one-off, and it's left as doesn't feel like a very buttoned up kind of thing. I'm almost thinking I hate to kind of like fantasy book this or what have you, but like if you could have wrapped it up where it's just the end and she wins and it's just kind of a dark note and she just reforms the world in her image and it's just a zombie world at that point and she's got everything she needs and it's buttoned up nicely, wham bam, thank you ma'am, done. It doesn't have to have a happy ending. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, and you could have just been, all right, cool, we're done. Wham, bam, we're done. It was a fun story, but, like, they gave it a valiant effort, and you just feel heartbroken for everybody that didn't make it. Boom, done. Like, you can leave it on that, and I would have been perfectly fine with it.
Now you left us with hope that there's more to it.
Right, and I get it. You play with that hero trope a little bit, but, like, still, it's just like, you could have left it and it would have been fine. But that's not to say I'm not excited for what they could potentially do if they do a season 2. But at the end of the day, we don't know. And that's the maddening part about it. Like, we don't know if we're going to get the follow up on this. And if this is all they're giving us, it has to, in the moment, skew how I would score it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we give it a rating and I'm just like, it's going to have to knock off a little bit for me for an overall rating just because we don't know. Now, the fun part would be if they do go do a season 2, do we re-rank season 1 knowing that there's going to be a season 2 now? Yeah. And could it maybe bump up the score for what we gave it here? And I'd like to maybe keep track of that if we could, if they go back and revisit this to see, does it change our opinion now on season 1, knowing that, okay, we got a season 2 and we got this definitive conclusion to this story. Does it affect how we feel about it now? Then when it happens, potentially, versus how we feel about it now.
Yeah, it'd be fun if we do get a season 2 to go back and like binge it all at one time and see how it fits together. Because the other thing is that you hope that if they do a season 2, that it's not going to be something that's completely out of left field and it changes everything and it doesn't kind of, because we said it feels like a movie. That was split up because they needed to do so to get access to a character. Like I was just expecting a definitive kind of ending. Like I was expecting, so Scarlet Witch wins and that's it. Like there's no hope. This is a dark story. You don't need the heroes to win. Yeah. You can allow, and then you've got Scarlet Witch can be good and bad, and which is also a great dynamic with stuff.
Absolutely.
And Elizabeth Olsen, no matter how she plays in animation live action, she's just amazing as Scarlet Witch. But you could have left it with her turning the entire world into zombies and just having rule of the undead and stuff, and that would have been a solid fitting ending because this is a dark story. We don't need that happy ending.
Right. And you just don't know how it's gonna play out, and that's kind of where I landed with this as far as like wanting to grade it, because I got enjoyment out of it, but not knowing whether they're going to follow up on it, it's going to have an impact, unfortunately, for sure.
Yeah, I had a fun time with this. We're being very nitpicky about some of the story stuff, but when you're going into something to have a fulfilling story with it being a mini series, as it's pegged to be as a mini series, it's also giving me flashbacks of Shogun that was touted as a miniseries. We absolutely loved and adore that show, one of the best shows I've ever watched. And then it ends, and we got 2 to 3 more seasons. It's like, if something's popular or going good, but if you have a certain story and you're telling what's supposed to be a singular story and ending it there, and then you're either leaving it open or going ahead and running with more, it's just like, it just leaves that kind of like, wait, what? Type of feeling to it. Like, we hope Shogun season 2 and 3 are fantastic. We hope we get a second season of Marvel Zombies, and it maybe concludes it there, but it just kind of left with a weird feeling at the end when it left it so kind of ambiguous because you thought this was it.
Right. I agree. But in the end, Marvel Zombies, the new animated miniseries from Disney Plus, is kind of a mixed bag with the ending, given we don't know. It's ambiguous if there's going to be a season 2 or not. It was originally presented as a 1-season miniseries, kind of end all be all, finish it up. But the animation style, gorgeous. It's very well done. The storyline is a lot of fun. The ending is kind of a mixed bag that leaves us wanting a little bit more when we were hoping for a more definitive conclusion. Now it's up in the air if we don't know if we're getting a second season or not. So based on the fact that we don't know where we're going from here, if we're going anywhere at all, it's going to unfortunately knock down the rating for me just a little bit. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I really like the story a lot, but it loses some of its luster when you present it as a one mini-series season, and now it leaves it ambiguous, like, okay, we could go back to it if we wanted to. I don't like when series do that. I know it's not completely up to the people in charge of making the show itself, but to give them a little bit of that wiggle room feels like a little bit of a cop-out to me, just based on the fact that it felt like it was only going to be a one season thing. I'm going to knock it a little bit as well for kind of backstepping a little bit for some of these characters that we're used to of seeing, like Shang-Chi, who felt like we went back all the way to the beginning in a way that kind of worked, but I still wanted to see a little bit more from him. And then obviously the ending with the WandaVision-esque Scarlet Witch stuff that we got at the very end just kind of left me feeling a little bit miffed. But overall, I really enjoyed the story they told. There were some really cool moments here featuring some characters that we know we're not going to see again, but also one that got a really cool story in that 4th episode, especially, that I'm excited to see if they do follow up on it. It's going to be fun, but in the end, I got to give it a 7.5. I really wanted a little bit more from this, and I really wanted it buttoned up nicely, but unfortunately, we just didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was between a 7.5 and 8, but you hit all the points that I also felt about. I did feel a little like about how they went backwards with Shang-Chi when we got to see him finally again, and we got Simu voicing him again. But I did like the little touch that they did with the rings with that, so I was all right with it after the fact. But when it first started, and same thing with the ending, feeling like it's another little bit of a retread, but we didn't really get an ending, thinking that this is a limited run miniseries, like this is it. And if that is it, it left it a little too open-ended at the end. So I think 7.5 is fair for this because of the few issues it does have, and with that ending just leaving you like, I thought this was it, but it's not. But it could be, because they have no idea if they're going to get to do any more.
Yeah, I still want to go back and watch, like kind of get a little bit of more of enjoyment watching it again. I want to go back and revisit it because there's some really fun stuff. Like I said, I loved Blade Knight in this. It was so much fun. Blade Knight was an amazing character. Got a really cool story in this. Just phenomenal. I love that they still modeled the character after Mahershala Ali. Hopefully, we'll say it till the end of time until they make the movie. Get Blade done. Stop screwing around. Like, get it done. We need Blade in the MCU. It's such a cool character. There's so many cool characters that I want to see them explore a little bit and finally reintroduce into the MCU. I'm really hoping they follow up with Blade and get that movie done. But yeah, I mean, it just, I get so stuck on that. Don't present it as a limited miniseries if you have plans to follow up, or if you're writing it. And I do want to give, like I said, you can't completely blame the people that make the show for leaving it a little open and ambiguous if you do it. But if you know going in you're only doing a one series, maybe they know something we don't. Which
could have also been something maybe they want to do more and they're trying to force Marvel's hand,
and it could be
to do more.
And it could be. And I hope they do at this point, now that we've gotten what we've gotten, go back and revisit it and finish the story the way they want to. But if they don't, it just feels like such a missed opportunity to just really button it up really nicely. And I get it. It's a fine line you got to walk. They made a choice. This is what we're given. But, man, what could have been if they just button it up? I might have even bumped it up to an 8.5 had they had that definitive ending. So I think it really affected my grade in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, but all 4 episodes of Marvel Zombies is out on Disney Plus now. Go check it out. Let us know what you thought of it. Like, we are being a little critical, but we really enjoy from the comic run and also the What If episode of what they've done with this zombie world. You got a lot of violence and action and decent story points that they're going through here. Just felt like it just got started and we have no idea if we're getting any more. It's like, it just left us feeling weird afterwards. That's the best way I can say it. It just kind of felt like it's done and it's over with, but it doesn't feel like it's done and over with, but we have no idea if it's continuing.
Right, and that's unfortunate because it's a really well-done story. It's very brutal in a lot of cases. Like, it's very violent, and in good ways, and you get to see some fun interactions with characters that you just don't get to see in regular movies, and that's part of the fantastical part of doing a zombies series like this. But it's a lot of fun, and like I said, I love that they get so many of the MCU actors to come back and do the voices for the animation. I'm a big fan of that anyway, and just the fact that they continued it with this, hats off to them. I hope they follow up. I really do, because I want to see them now that they've done it. It's left me wanting more, which, if that was your mission, success. Convince your bosses to give you another season. Hopefully people check it out and it does well and we get a follow-up on it. So hopefully it'll change our overall thinking of this story if we get to go back and revisit it.
Yeah, this was a really interesting week of combining Marvel Zombies with One Battle After Another because of just how different they are from each other and stuff. I still would love to see Marvel do a What If in live action.
For sure.
Do a limited series of that, because we've talked about it before, that you could have so much fun with, especially like after Doomsday and Secret Wars, you can go back and take Channing Tatum's Gambit on a mission in an episode. You can do a live action Marvel Zombies in an episode. Like, there's so much, if they would commit to doing a live action version of What If, there could be a lot of fun to be had with that. And I'm still holding out hope that that's something that comes in the future, is that live action What If.
It would be a ton of fun if they visited it. I know with a lot of those actors and the amount of money they make, it may not be economically feasible to do so. And you don't have to have the Robert Downeys of the world in the series. You can have fun with a Captain Carter. You can have fun with, some of these other characters who aren't in the upper popular echelon of characters. Come back and do this. I'd love to see them come back and do a Moon Knight type thing or something. Give us Moon Knight season 2, for the love of God. I'll petition for that too.
Go back and give us a 90s Avengers.
Awesome.
Tom Cruise as Iron Man. You get like Keanu Reeves, and
that would be,
of course you don't have Patrick Swayze and those kind of stars from the 80s and 90s, but there's just so much that they could do. Like, the animation part can give you a lot of fun, but there's just something that would be about doing these different stories in live action that I would really love to see a live action Marvel Zombies, get the actors back. We know Disney and Marvel has some money to do it, so they're not going to want to explode a budget, but there's just so much you could give. Another send-off to the Fox X-Men in there. You could have Wesley Snipes come back as Blade in an episode. So there's a way that they could play within the MCU to give themselves this kind of Elseworlds like DC is doing. Do it with What If. You could have one season, you could have multiple seasons where each character, bring Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. back for an episode and see where they're at. Like, there's so much you could potentially do with a structure of a What If in live action. That would be a ton of fun.
Yeah, it'd be an absolute blast to go back and visit. Let's have some fun. Let's make some fun stuff. Like,
call us Marvel.
Yeah, put us in charge. We'll have some fun ideas to throw about. Let's make some fun stuff happen.
I do say not everybody cares about award season. Oscars, we know it can be a bit pretentious and people, all that stuff. But this, after seeing One Battle After Another, did leave me almost with a little bit of sadness with the upcoming award season stuff, because if you go back and look at our Long Walk review, you know how much we loved what David Johnson did in that. But now you've got Sinners, you've got The Long Walk, and now you've got One Battle After Another. You're going to have, just between those three films, so many nominations and fight, and they all deserve to win. So it's like, fun. If Sean Penn goes in as a supporting actor and David Johnson goes in as a supporting actor, like, that's going to be like, they're both incredible performances in different ways, and it's like they both deserve to get something after these performances. And it's one of those, like, there's been some really good performances going up against each other, but I feel like this year is going to have a lot of, between male and female actors and actresses, like, there's going to be a big battle for the award season, because there's some really great performances this year.
It's a good problem to have. It's been a really good year. Like, I feel personally, now that we're getting towards like kind of the ending points of the year, we're in the final quarter of the year now, like, it's felt very top heavy. Like, the good movies are really, really, really good movies. And then you just have like a fun mix of just kind of men, kind of there, kind of like one off. You don't have to go back and revisit it, but we've gotten the movies that are good are really, really, really good this year. And I'm very thankful for that too, because we've gotten some absolute gems this year that have come out. And we've got one coming up potentially this week that's already got a lot of buzz too, potentially for some of the performances in it. And I'm really excited to dive into that and check it out too.
Yeah, and we also have like Wicked for Good, the finale of, that story. We have the next Avatar movie coming on December. So we still got some heavy hitters. But yeah, next week is a movie that I've been looking forward to for a while since we got the first trailer. We have Dwayne Johnson as Mark Kerr in the Smashing Machine. He's giving kind of the life story of this infamous UFC fighter, and we got the prosthetics and we got the different look, and it looks like the first true, potentially award-worthy performance of Dwayne Johnson that we've seen from him. It's also interesting because the director of that also did Happy Gilmore 2 this year, so there's quite a stark difference in the movies you're putting out in 1 year when you have a serious sports drama like The Smashing Machine and you have a silly over-the-top sports film and Happy Gilmore 2.
Yeah, we all know infamously how you feel about Happy Gilmore 2. That
I still haven't revisited.
Still not let you live down because you were so wrong on that. But no, I'm excited to see this film. I'm stoked to see The Rock take on more of a dramatic type role that has definitely got a lot of people buzzing about him. You also have the fantastic Emily Blunt in that film too. So I'm excited to dive in to check that one out and review it next week for sure.
We also got the final 2 episodes of Alien Earth Season 1, so we finally get to see this story that we've been so engrossed in, to see how they're going to wrap it up and how it's all going to come to a conclusion. Because while the Season 2 hasn't been greenlit yet, there's a very good chance that it gets to continue on. It's been highly successful, a lot of good viewership, a lot of good buzz behind it. So even though it hasn't been greenlit yet, we're pretty confident that a Season 2 is going to be coming to it.
I'm excited to talk about that one. I have the last episode dropped this week. I've been able to watch it. I'm excited to talk about it next week because there's some really fun stuff that we get to talk about when we go and dive into the ending and give our overall grade of the season on a whole. So I'm excited to finally wrap that one up and talk about it and give our final grade and talk about what could potentially be coming if we get a Season 2 for sure.
But that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.